All right, folks, it's time for World Politics, and we'll be talking about political things going on. And I've got Sasha Starr with me, so let's see what he's got to say. And I've also got Bree Davis here, as well as, of course, one of the founders of the network, Nick Palveda. But I know a lot of the things that people are talking about is this lovely debate, and all along those lines, well, not the debate, but the debates that are coming up, as well as the case, and all along those lines. So, what are you hearing, Sasha, about the case? I know that some people were coming to Trump's defense, and there's even speculation that Tim Scott may be the vice president, and all along those lines. And of course, that trial is still going on. And now we've got some people saying that there might be a debate in June, and maybe one in September, and maybe even one in July. So, what are they talking about in Canada in terms of the notion of a debate?
Yeah, in Canada, actually, a lot of people following this trial. Unfortunately, it's not televised, so we have to go through kind of a third sources. Hopefully, those that were listening, they're objective. Some of them maybe not so. So it's hard to say. Anyway, you have probably some favorite broadcasters, so probably you would listen to them, and hopefully they're right in what their objective. Um, I don't know. It seems to me that prosecution made its case. The defense was poking at Michael Cohen, but it seems to me it's all based on documents, even without Michael Cohen testimony. I think the case is very clear. But again, whether the um, jurors will agree with that remains to be seen. And even if they all 12 will agree, then obviously there will be a verdict, and then there will be appeal, and there will be in 2 years' time the appeal will be heard or so. So nothing really will change a lot, except that some people in um, undecided states, maybe they will not be so eager to vote for convicted felon. Who knows? That's what I think.
Yep,
He's
I see
far from not losing this case. I mean, you have to imagine the star witness, a person who, what was the National Enquirer? The head of the National Enquirer. He's probably the most credible one. And then your other star witness is a convicted of theft. I mean, convicted of fraud, convicted of everything. So he's not a credible witness. They did the right thing. One thing Trump did right.
But he would not be even needed to be there because it's all in documents.
It doesn't matter. In a criminal case, you got to have actus reus and mens rea. What's that? They have to have a guilty mind that they intended to commit a crime, and and you have to prove that beyond any reasonable doubt. And so the thing is, I think the defense got it. They did the smart thing. They kept Trump. I don't know how they did it. Kept him off the stands. So now they can sit and argue that he never had intent to commit a crime. There was no intention whatsoever, and the star witness is a liar, a thief, and everything else in town.
You could even kill 100 people on the fifth side. It doesn't matter. It's not a trial of Michael Cohen. Trial of
all the anti-Trumps are out there. He's guilty now. Let's figure a way to convict him. Rather than sit and look at the facts. And also the law is tough. I mean, you have to have actus reus and mens rea. Okay, so the thing is, he has to have the guilty act, and his intention was to, sabotage the basically hide election funds.
That's exactly what Trump did by paying this much money to keep this away from American public.
Honestly, I thought
don't want the rest of it, and it's all proven by documents. Michael Cohen, he didn't even need to testify at all. But
I thought this was the best case that they had against this guy. and they had the worst possible series of
Hey,
witnesses.
Nick, speaking of best cases and everything, since you are a lawyer by trade, and I know
I
Sasha's
don't
got
do
some
criminal
opinions
law.
as well, what is our
So
take on this notion of there being an international court that is trying to convict
yeah,
the Israeli leader and the Hamas leader? Because
yeah, I
apparently
mean,
there's
yeah,
this whole notion that they're
ICC,
going to issue arrest warrants, and I don't even know how you're going to
the
serve these people.
International Court of Justice has no teeth, Mark. I mean, everybody in law practice knows that it's like no teeth at all. And I saw their arguments. Their arguments are cogible. They go, well, no question Hamas committed a crime, and then Netanyahu who retaliated with another crime. But almost all, you could almost say all wars are like that. In other words, it's not clean hands on both sides. But the International Court of Justice has really no enforcement power whatsoever. Um, at University of Miami, where I went to law school, they actually had international mock trial and international this, international that. But at the end of the day, unless you have the two states agree, usually by way of a treaty, you have no teeth, and so you're just sitting there, you know, flapping your jaws, and it's kind of a much ado about nothing. It's more of a political statement than a real court. Now, Trump, on the other hand, is actually inside of a real court. But if he wins, this is where the backfire can take place. He wins this one, and he wins a couple of the others, which he might win all of them. Then what happens is that he's going to parade around the country slamming the Democrats, and
If
rightfully
he will
so.
get elected, if he will get elected.
Yeah. I mean, and by the way, it's a good chance. Don't discount, because I was talking to my office just before I got on here about Biden basically weaponizing all his different little minion departments to go after individuals. Now, we face that here in the United States because we have to defend ourselves against these people. One specifically is the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation. But that's happening to us through the PBDC, the others Department of Labor. Every one of these administrative agencies is basically going after people that they shouldn't go after. And the reason why is they're being funded with huge amounts of taxpayer dollars, huge amounts, billions.
But Nick, the flip side of that is that
You know
there's
what's costing
there is an
taxpayers
agency.
huge
But also, the
amounts
flip side of that
of
is that there is an agency that is doing quite well because they're even finding money. Because apparently here in North Carolina, there's a lot of people that they just gave a big check to because there was a lot of untracked money. So they're trying to find out who these people are because they might have some money that is owed to them through the IRS. And apparently there was a big check that the IRS just sent here in the state of North Carolina. And I know it's in other states as well.
There's unclaimed funds all the time, but to sit in law practice and listen to the government lie all the time and is not a fun thing to do. Now, I'm not going to say if Trump gets in there, he's going to be Mr. Truth Teller because he doesn't have a history of it.
But Nick, Trump has already said at the NRA, and I don't know what Sasha's thoughts about this, but at the NRA convention, he floated an idea that some people have feared that he might do anyway, but he floated the idea of a third term. And constitutionally, that is not allowed, but he did float the notion of a third term. So do you think that he's got any legs to stand on, or will he try to do a third term? Because he floated this idea.
I think they're called trial balloons. A lot of these trial balloons get popped, But the real problem is some of the media picks up trial balloons, and all the politicians do it. They pick it up like it's the gospel, and it's definitely not the gospel. But what we're looking at is an election which is not based. Well, will be based at the end of the day on the economy. But I am saying what they're doing is they're wrecking the United States economy as we speak, and everybody in the financial services industry here knows it. But there's very little we can do about it. All we can do is sit and watch inflation take off. We watch interest rates remain high. We watch the national debt grow, where our largest budget item today is not our military. Can you imagine that? Not our military. That's an $800+ billion item. It's interest on the national debt. And what happens is people get nothing for it. Zero for it.
Nick, what do you think?
And the thing is,
until
they address the financial crisis that exists in the United States.
Well, speaking of that financial crisis, and I'm hoping that Bree will join us because she's here as well and everything. But what is your take on this notion of some people are going after bigger money. I know that right here in Durham, there's I think $10 million to be coming to the Hayti neighborhood because it is a neighborhood that has definitely been kind of struck and doesn't have as much of a economy as it used to have and everything. And then there's the notion that the teachers are trying to have a union be recognized, and of course the teachers want a higher pay as well. So, what is your take when there's a number of agencies that are trying to get, as you would like to say, the government dole? And I know that there's whether it's a neighborhood or whether it's the teachers or a number of other things. And like I said, Bree may want to jump into this conversation as well. So I'm hoping that she'll get on camera and join our conversation also. But definitely, what is your take on this notion?
Well, I mean, the thing is, teachers actually do provide a service. Okay, but they're mainly funded by the state, not the federal government. Although a certain amount of federal government funds do go into it, but they're also teaching the wrong things. They're not teaching things that are useful to people getting jobs. They're not teaching things that are useful that will move the economy forward. So you're spending a lot of money for basically a huge waste of time, and that's part of the reason I did agree with Harrison. Although again, you don't see him in Canada, but the guy from Kansas City saying, "Okay, you got your degree. You just wasted 4 years, and Lord knows how much money." And he might be right. I don't know what it cost to go to that parochial school, but the ladies that went there could have spent a lot of money, wasted their money when they should have looked to do something else. And people don't like her.
But this is exactly the point. I remember I said earlier in the program today that forget about the interest rates; they will not go down. The inflation will never be 2% again in our lifetime. And here's an example: same teachers and firemen and the other people, they all want to get more and more money. But they will get more and more money, so the prices will keep going higher. So therefore, it's an endless process, and there will be never the end of it. So therefore, there will be no 2% inflation. There will be 3.5, 4, 5, and even 6%, if that's the case. And the gasoline prices will go higher, and there is no end to it. So therefore, there is a new reality. Stock market is doing spectacularly well. So when you're talking about economy is just really doesn't have any meaning, because it's so important what you mean by economy. Economy of what? Economy is really an empty sound. When people say, "Oh, we have great economy," empty sound. When we have lousy economy, empty sound. You have to be really specific what part of the economy you're talking about, whether it's inflation, whether it's a stock market, whether it's something else. Maybe you have in mind. Please explain then. What do you mean by that we have lousy economy?
Well, it deals with the average American. I mean, the thing is, it's
There's no
different.
such thing as average American. They
Well,
live in
the
different
average
states, and some
demographic.
of them are homeless, and some of them are multimillionaires.
Yeah, that's true. That's
There is
true.
no
Well,
such thing. I
so
don't believe
there's a
average.
great book written called Poverty by America. Okay, they're not watching our
Okay.
show. The reason they're not watching our show is they can't afford television sets. They can't afford the internet. They can't afford anything. They're lucky just to eat and
So only one question remains: whether they are going to vote. Because if they are not going to vote, it's garbage, redundancy,
that's what
and
I'm
you
saying.
don't have to even worry about it at all.
They're
If you
treated,
do vote, okay, maybe
like
you write the
garbage.
votes. Yeah.
Right. You're right. The system ignores them because they're not going to vote, and so the thing is they're thrown down the toilet. But America has a lot of these people right now. There's over 1 million of these people. A lot of them are children.
1 million is nothing. If it will be 10 million, and if they will all read Karl Marx, then you have to worry about something. Because right
Well,
now,
yeah,
there's nothing
because
to worry about.
yeah, but see, then you go to that extremist. But we do have the funds to support them, but we're not using it. Instead, we're using money to support Nvidia stock. We're using money to support SpaceX. We're using money to support Elon Musk multi-billion-dollar ventures by paying for his charging stations across the country. We're supporting Elon Musk by giving them huge contracts for SpaceX. We're supporting the billionaire class And what we're doing is we're basically screwing the average American. And this is even Biden's policies, which shocks me, because you'd think that he would be a true liberal, and he would say, okay, we're going to address poverty, but he doesn't. He puts all his money into corporate America like he's a drunken sailor.
But Nick,
But
speaking of addressing poverty and all along those lines, that's one of the things that I mentioned because, like I said, I wasn't planning on watching it, but I did watch the Pope's interview. And one of the things the Pope said when he was having that interview, I think it was with CBS and everything, was this notion that the migrants should be welcomed when they come in there and they should be integrated into the society. And he didn't feel that we were doing a good job of that. He actually mentioned going there and seeing many migrants that were not coming here for drugs or any of the other things that they are stereotypically accused of coming here for. And some of them were just trying to come to escape persecution, whether that was from government or whether that was from other types of persecution, and they were trying to get integrated into the society, and it wasn't the bad element that is there, because I'm not saying there isn't a bad element, but he definitely was saying that there needs to be more, because he even talked about going to one of the border towns near Texas, and I know Kimberly was one of our other founders has got some Texas roots, and a lot of these people were families and they were mothers with their children trying to get across the border, and they're trying to find a better life for themselves and all along those lines. So what is your take when we've got these tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of folks that are trying to cross the border and are basically trying to find a better way of life, whether they're escaping political or economic injustice?
You charge them. Like I said, you charge them 10 grand. Now, part of the reason why you charge them 10,000, a recent study came out, said the Medicaid cost alone for an immigrant is about $10,000. So we're not going anywhere having them pay 10,000, but they need some skin in the game. You just don't walk across the borders and say, hey, I'm here now, pay for all my goods and services. So 10 grand is a reasonable price. They pay their student
reasonable price, but what if these folks don't have basically a pot to piss in, but they're trying to escape some economic problems and all along those lines?
Well, there's people all over hey, look, Mark, there's people all over the world that are broke. I mean, if you go to Bangladesh, and we have some of our shows that come from there, a lot of the people there are broke. A lot of people in India are broke. A lot of people in Africa are broke. So what? The entry fee to play in this tournament is 10 grand. Now figure it out. It's not our problem. And if they say I don't have the 10 grand, I can appreciate it. Then you send them back home, And once they come up with the 10 grand, I don't care how they come up with it. They get a credit card, they write a check. They go back and they work until they make 10,000. They pay their coyotes 6,000 to drag them to the border. So they don't need the coyotes anymore. All they need is a background check, 10 grand, and let them in. And then I don't have any problem with it because they paid the cost to be here. Other than that, they don't belong here. They belong wherever they came from. I don't care.
What's your take on that, Sasha? Because like I said, the reason I'm at HIs, there's a group here. It's a women's cohort, and there's a number of women, including some Latin women as well as African Americans. As a matter of fact, one of the leaders said that her dad, because I was hearing her conversation, was a Mexican that came across the border probably illegally and all along those lines. But now she is doing some work in the community and is basically what would be considered a dreamer because she has now gone through all the correct processes and all along those lines. So you're saying that you would not allow those type of folks to come across, if I'm hearing you correctly and everything. It sounds like they're making some good moves and are making some progressive moves in that space. But I'm hearing you correctly, you wouldn't have them come across unless they had the 10 grand.
Yeah, that's right.
Times now, I remember when we came out of the Soviet Union, we had absolutely no money. We came to Canada with $5 in our pocket. And seems today it works differently. People are able to bring money with them. They're paying a lot of money to this so-called transportation companies that bring them to the border, Mexican-U.S. border. I'm talking about they're paying sometimes thousands of dollars, and they're able to somehow accumulate some wealth around, say, $10,000, probably the right figure. And if they would pay even half of that, say $5 million, $5,000, sorry. And that would be justifiable under the circumstances.
Yeah. And
But if I
they
heard you, but if I heard you
5,000
correctly,
down, 5,000 later on. I mean,
but if I heard
5,000.
you, but if I heard you correctly, Sasha, you would not be allowed in Nick's philosophy because you just told me you had $5 in your pocket. So, according to Nick, you would not get allowed to come in.
Different times, Mark. Different times. I came over in 70s. Can you imagine the 70s compared to what is happening now? It's a different time. It's a different.
It's a different times, but some people are in deeper hardships than they were in the '70s, even depending on where they're coming from and all along those lines. So,
Yeah,
like I said,
the thing is, you can beg, borrow, and the money from somewhere. Notice that we have a group of students that are indentured servants in the United States right now. All the students with student loans have loans that cannot be discharged in bankruptcy. Seriously. Well, there's an opportunity there for the lending sharks. Okay, lend them the money. Same terms and conditions of the student loans, cannot be discharged in bankruptcy. They pay their 10 grand and let them in. I don't have any problem with that after doing a proper background check. Anybody who doesn't do that, you find them and you deport them back to their country. So we're playing a game, and it's a fair game, fair for both sides, fair for us. We don't bear the financial burden of them, fair for them, because now all of a sudden they have access to the United States if they so desire. But free, nothing in life is free, And oh, poor me. Well, that's not. We don't need any more oh, poor me's in the United States. We're poor enough. Remember, Mark, we have. I'm going to promote this guy's book, Poverty in America. We have over 1 million poor people in the United States right now. 1 million. We don't need any more poor people. We need people that have means, money, and opportunity. And poor people then go back to their home countries, and then they'll be rich because.
I mean, well, what are you going to do with the poor people that are in our own area and everything?
Yeah.
I just looked it
Well,
up.
well,
The
the thing
official
is-
poverty rate in 2022
Yeah.
was
Well, then
11.5%.
we should redeploy. See, we have such misdirection of assets. We redeploy all the money that you liberals like to give to SpaceX and Internet for All and charging stations. You redeploy that into housing, okay? And have the U.S. government go back to major housing boom. I figured it'd be about 500 billion, but believe it or not, we squander that every year. 500 billion. Cut these stupid government programs. Start building housing, like housing. They don't have to be elaborate housing, but housing so everybody in the United States. If you're a
But I'm not
citizen,
exactly,
don't
Nick, I'm
have
not
the right
exactly
to
sure
housing.
the reason and why, and I'll have to bring some guests on to have some theories, but apparently, and you'll be glad to know this, that the poverty rate for African Americans decreased apparently between 2021 and
Well,
2022.
there
So
should be-
apparently
be-
it's the lowest in record. So maybe
there
there
should
are
be
some
nobody
efforts in the
United
African American
States-
community to actually get
Nobody.
out of poverty.
Nobody in the United States should go homeless. Okay. And it should be it should be a right to homes. In other words, having even if it's a 250 square foot apartment studio with a kitchen, everybody in the United States.
Now, how
should
would you
have
make this
access
a
to
right?
that.
Because I'm trying to figure this out.
I don't see any
I
problem.
agree with you. It should be a right, but how would you make it a right when the apartment complexes, or the people that are doing housing, and I'm trying to understand this. Sasha is an investor. Maybe he's got some ideas, but how can we make it a right where everybody has a home, like we all have access to water and everything? So exactly how do we do this so that everybody gets a home? I hear you, and it sounds good in theory, but I'm trying to figure out the
Yeah,
capitalistic and the
it's
logistical way
simple.
of making it happen. So how do we
Yeah,
make it that everybody has a home?
Okay, Mark, you redeploy the assets. All the money that's going to the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, the 80 billion they're squandering, all the money that's going to the Department of Labor, the 15 billion that they're squandering. You take that. There's I just counted almost 100 billion right there. We only need 500 billion, and all these homeless people would go away. Okay, you redeploy those assets to housing for every American. Then you redeploy all the money going to SpaceX, which is about 160 billion. Redeploy, and it all ends up in Elon Musk's pocket. You redeploy all the money going to Tesla charging stations, which is another 100 billion. You put that into housing. You redeploy this Internet for All, which is about 60 billion. You put that into housing. Notice it starts adding up. And all of a sudden, this year alone, you're halfway there to providing housing for all Americans. Okay, and
Hold on a second. Hold on a
that is an
second, Nick.
asset on the U.S. government's
No, I hear what
balance.
you're saying, and by theory that sounds good. But
Why do you want to make? Why do
Sasha,
you guys want to
Sasha,
make
hold on a
Elon Musk
second.
rich? I don't get
Sasha,
it.
one of the biggest companies, and they actually are here in North Carolina, but they're also in Florida. They're in a number of other states as well. Is a company called General Services Corporation. They own many apartment complexes and all along those lines. And I'm thinking they're probably on the stock exchange. I don't know this for a fact, but I'm thinking that they are and everything. So with the housing being an industry that is a capitalistic industry, do you agree with Nick that we can change it over and everything? Because I'm thinking this is a stock that the people that own those houses are not going to want to just give the houses away for free and everything. So, Sasha, what is your take? And can we have housing for all? He doesn't want internet for everybody, but he wants housing for all. So, can we have housing?
I want housing more than internet for all. That's for sure.
Well, I would first of all, I would try to get into some details. Let's say there is enough money to build housing for everybody, so every person in America is entitled to some kind of a little apartment with a kitchen and so on. And okay, so now you have to pay the rent,
Right.
and from what?
There is no rent. Wait,
Oh, there's no rent.
Yeah, he's saying free housing.
There is no rent.
Housing is no rent at all.
No, there is no rent. The housing is bought and paid for, dude. I already ran the numbers.
Not even taxes, nothing at all.
No, there's no increase in taxes. No increase.
You don't pay for water, you don't pay for electricity, you don't pay nothing.
Yeah.
So who's going to pay for it all?
Which is the question I was asking.
You know who's paying for it all? Your friend Elon Musk and your friends at NVIDIA, who are getting funded huge by the government to create.
Okay, so before you build this housing, you have to make agreements with NVIDIA and Elon Musk. And
well, we don't need agreements with NVIDIA. We need to strip the agreements with NVIDIA and all these computer chip companies. They're costing the American taxpayer $80 billion to $150 billion. You redeploy that, strip it away from NVIDIA. And the reason why we're scared of China, give me a break. And you strip it away from these crazy companies, you move it to housing. Housing is all bought and paid for. Won't even increase the national debt. It's amazing what you could do if you redeploy. But what happens, what's going on in Congress right now, the Democrats and Republicans get together because their campaign contributors are, Elon Musk and company, and the computer chip NVIDIA, the Intel's contributing. So those are the people who are all benefiting, and they're screwing the American public by taking all that money, stick it in their pockets, making millionaires out of people like you and billionaires out of people like them. Okay, stop the nonsense. Instead,
so hold on a second, Nick. I want to come back to NVIDIA. I just learned this because apparently.
Oh, what about furniture? Who's going to buy furniture?
Furniture's cheap. You can get it at the thrift store.
It's the part of the deal. So
I'm not saying they're going to be living in palaces. I'm just going to say they're going to have a roof over their head, a bed.
I see. So people who live in all amenities free of charge. Electricity, water, and
electricity can be free if it's solar. So by the way, what he's squandering $600 billion on right now is climate change initiatives. Baloney. You put solar in there. There is no electric cost. There is no water cost.
Hold on a second.
Is food also included in the deal, or you have to buy your own food?
There's a lot of places where people can go today to actually get food. So the thing is, I'm not going to worry about food for right now. When somebody doesn't even have basic housing right now, and it's easily provided for by stripping down all the assets that are going to the billionaires and millionaires, and it's corporate welfare. All you do is redeploy it. Now you also have another interesting thing. Now, Sasha, we have an asset on our balance sheet. It's called housing. Now, right now, it's free. Why not? Why? Because we're going to build up the bottom. We're not going to keep screwing them like we've been doing for years. We're going to start building up. And then maybe sooner or later, it could actually turn profitable. If not, you have huge amounts of assets for the U.S. government as opposed to squandering it on these stupid charging stations, this stupid internet for all.
But these assets will deteriorate because if you don't provide maintenance.
Just maintain them, but right now,
who's going to pay for maintenance? NVIDIA?
There's a certain amount of maintenance.
So NVIDIA and Elon Musk, and They have to first build the house. They have
That's
to
right.
maintenance. They have
And right now we have 3D housing we can
provide
build.
electricity. They have to provide gas and water and everything else.
Like I say, electricity can be free because of solar, so electricity won't be a problem. Water is next to free, done properly. So what you're talking about is really minimal, if any, expense. What
But
you're
some
doing,
people
what
provide.
you're doing for the United
No,
States of America,
hold on a second.
you're
But
getting rid of a
hold on a
million
second, because I
people.
want to get back to the immigration, because you were talking about the power of the immigration, and apparently, which I did not realize, because I don't always know all the people and everything, but apparently the founder of NVIDIA is an immigrant as well, because apparently he was born in Taipei, Taiwan in 1963, so he's actually only a year older, I mean, a year younger than myself and everything, or maybe half a year. Because depending on when he was born, and he lived in Thailand for part of his childhood. And when he was 9, he and his brothers moved to Tacoma,
Oh, great!
Washington, to live with their uncle.
I can't
So
wait to be
apparently, he's an
military.
example of an immigrant that did well. Because apparently, he also worked at Denny's.
No, he won the lottery. He didn't do well.
He won at Denny's.
He won the lottery, Mark. Let's give. Please don't worship these people. He won the San Francisco lottery. Okay, and what we're doing as a government is we're funding him even more. We're trying hard and desperate not to tax him and make him a billionaire, where you're screwing millions of people and putting them into poverty. We don't give a rat's rear, because he can go to Washington, D.C. and start lobbying for his favorite company to be provided government grants, not loans, grants, free government giveaways in the 60 to 80 billion dollar range, so his NVIDIA stock can go way up, and Sasha can do his cover call writing and make millions. He makes billions.
Apparently he's worth $68.6 billion according to Forbes, and they're saying that he's going to eventually eclipse Elon Musk as one of the world's richest men, thanks to the explosive share, which I know that Sasha's been involved in as well.
Just what we need in the United States: another rich lowlife like Elon Musk. Just what we need. Why do you want to reproduce these rich lowlifes? I don't get it. They're like who's that guy? Bezos, Jeff Bezos. The minute he saw he had to pay some capital gains taxes in Washington State, he bolted to save over $300 million. Went to Florida, declared domicile there, then sold $2 billion of Amazon stock so he could save 150-300 million. And you know what he did with that money? Did he build housing for the poor? Did he build housing to try to help individuals? No. He built a big mansion, a $300 million mansion for himself. I don't get it. I have no
another popular
supporting these rich low lives anymore. There's absolutely
another popular rich person that might be getting richer because his team is doing well, because the defending champions have been eliminated. But a lot of times there was even speculation, and I know Sasha's heard it as well, of Mark Cuban running for some sort of political office, but now his basketball team is in the semifinals, and they might even win a championship, which I know is something he's been voting for, and all along those lines. So, is there any hope that Mark Cuban might become a political leader? Because I know that he, in the past, has not been the biggest Trump fan, but he is definitely
he probably won't. He probably won't go
possibly at having a winning basketball team and everything. So, Sasha, do you think Mark Cuban might be thinking about running for office at some point or another? Because he's only worth $5.4 billion, so he's not quite.
I doubt it that at this time he wants to square with Donald Trump. It doesn't really mean anything to him, and he doesn't want to fight Trump. So that he'll wait until Trump will serve his term. If he will win, if he will not win, he will serve jail terms or his various crimes. And Cuban then he will easily become a nominee.
But a day ago, he said something that Nick fights against, because Mark Cuban said about a day ago that mastering AI will be the key to building your wealth. So he said if you want to build wealth, you've got to go the AI route and everything along those lines. So that is something that Mark Cuban said about a day or two ago and everything. So what is your take on this? Because he's saying that if you want to build some wealth these days, you need to get into AI.
We'll see. We'll see.
I mean, it's just computer technology improving everybody's life, which is completely possible. And like I said, with computer technology and with 3D printing, you can actually print these houses out at a very nominal cost if you decide to redeploy your assets in that direction, as opposed to funding ideas so that billionaires can go to space, which is a waste of time. funding ideas so that billionaires can have charging stations, a waste of money, and funding ideas like so billionaires can.
So wait a minute, you weren't gonna be like the brother that just went up in space that wanted to go in
So
space
just
in the
cut it out.
'60s because they just had sent a bunch of people up into space in the recent I think it's called orbit or something like that. I think it was about 6 or 7 of them that went up, and one of them was 91 years
Oh
old.
yeah,
So
yeah, that's really good. That helps these 1 million people. I'm sure they were very happy that Jeff Bezos and Virgin Richard Branson could go into space. I'm sure they were thrilled. So why is the government supporting screwing poor people all the time and rewarding the rich? It's real simple, Mark. Poor people don't vote. Okay, they don't vote in great numbers, and they certainly don't lobby in Congress. They don't have the money to lobby in Congress.
But Nick, tell me why Trump, being so very wealthy person, why wouldn't he build some housing for people who?
Because Trump is a rich lowlife, Sasha. Sorry to hear that. He's it's not like he's from money and came from money. He came from what they call nouveau riche, and because of it, he's like, what can I say?
Well, we have what we have. What can I say?
But speaking of what we have and everything, because this is something you fight against, and I know Sasha's other show, or one of his other shows, is called Russia, Ukraine, and China. But apparently, the Chinese have jumped into the market because earlier today it was said that a private Chinese commercial space company has successfully conducted the first trial of a low orbit satellite internet broadband communication network in Thailand, marking the first overseas application and exploration of China's low orbit broadband satellite. So it looks like this notion of internet for all might be coming to China as well, because they are looking at this also. So just wondering your take on this, and do we not need to be concerned about it? Because apparently the Chinese, who's got billions of people, are looking at having internet for their various citizens as well, because they just launched this low broadband communication network in Thailand, so they can all go and get the internet there in the Asian theater.
Well, sure, China is doing very well, especially in high-tech directions. And so India also will be, in a few years, powerhouse. They will not be able to compete with the US, no way, but they will be able to improve their service to their people, that's for sure.
Yeah, and they're building some very nice buildings. They also have very good housing for their poor people. Unlike the United States of America, like I said, we screw our poor people here because we don't really care.
Wait a minute, you said they got good housing for the poor people. Doesn't
Oh,
isn't India a caste
amazing
system?
buildings over there.
Don't they have a caste system where
No, that's India.
the
That's
poor
India.
people are not treated
No,
that well? So don't they
that-
have a class
That's India,
issue
not
as well?
China. That's India. India has a caste system that's still left over, but China does not. But they're going to be a serious competitor of ours because they are driven to compete. There's no question the United States is going to have to do it. And we can't compete with them effectively if we have huge amounts of debt hanging over our heads as we're rewarding our billionaire class with incredibly stupid things because they just want it, and they can get it because they can manipulate the whole U.S. government by paying them off. Remember, Citizens United didn't do anybody favors. It allows them to basically, through their PACs, make unlimited contributions and buy senators and congressmen, and they're bought cheap. When I was part of the 12th largest PAC in the United States, and I was going to Congress, I couldn't believe the people in Congress aren't rich. The senators are well off, but the Congress people are really cheap. And so the thing is, you could buy them off with unbelievable small.
But there are too many of them.
And there are way too many of them. Yeah, but the thing is, when you have a lot of PAC money, what we did is we spread it among all of them, Sasha. And it's amazing how much access you can get. When
Do
you
you
write
remember former president of Chess Federation, the World Chess Federation, somebody with the name Mr. Ilumzhinov, Kirsan?
Yeah, he's a crook.
Yeah, but,
Isn't he just a puppet of Putin?
yeah, but he's very wealthy man. He's probably not a billionaire, but he's probably hundreds of millions of dollars for sure, because remember, he spent on chess millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
However, he did one very interesting thing. One day, somewhere in the mid 2000s, he was elected president of Kalmykia. That's a little
Right.
place where he's from. There are Buddhism people and so on. Okay. Anyway, he became president. So next day when he comes to work, and there are all the parliament and all the people from different agencies and so on, and they started to introduce each other. He stopped them and say, hold on, okay, let's figure out who is who and what is what. I am a Han of Kalmykia. I'm the only one who can rule this place. All of you, go home, never come back here. I don't need you. Go find yourself work, and that's all there is to it. So I'm the only one who's ruling this country. It's a small place, about 1 million people altogether.
Yeah.
So that's one interesting way of ruling the country.
Really well, at least I'm sure he was pretty efficient at it, and he did build a nice chess center there. So there's something good to say about that. But since then, you're right, Sasha. FIDE is just completely corrupt. The only thing that counterbalances Rick Sankenfield in St. Louis, he's got huge amounts of money because he founded DFA. I followed that for years, and because he's got huge amounts of money and he's willing to donate to chess, to me, he's as competitive as FIDE. I'm not sure if you need FIDE if you have Rick Sankenfield. So that's my opinion on that for what it's worth.
Well, there are different functions of FIDE, Rick Sankenfield, but I agree with you that he doesn't need FIDE, that's for sure. The only thing when he may need FIDE if he wants to have the World Championship match, and that would have to be sanctioned by FIDE, so he'll have to pay somebody something. And,
right. But he can afford to buy and sell all FIDE if he wants to.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing is, speaking about chess, okay, that's another group that can be bought pretty cheap, as we well know. It's congressmen and chess players. They can be bought pretty cheap, and it's just a real sad commentary. And when I was playing chess, I keep looking at the prize funds and going, they're sad. They haven't really improved very much, And so the people that play chess, wow, well, you know that, Sasha, because you used to play, and there's like no money in that. So you go to music, and there's a little bit more money in that.
There's a little bit more money in music.
Then you go to the stock exchange, and that's where all the money is.
Actually, I'm planning to introduce and support prize or maybe a couple of prizes in the upcoming Canadian Open in Montreal. Yeah. It will be a huge tournament.
Yeah, that's sponsored by the Canadian Chess Federation. That's not FIDE, So it's a whole different cat. Well, see, the thing is with Trump, the reason he wants to get his hands on this is that Trump, who obviously screws around with his paltry billion-plus net worth, okay, and you have to think about that, and he really screws around with it. That when you're playing with the government, you're talking not paltry billions, not even 100 billions. You're talking about trillions of dollars, like $6-7 trillion, Sasha. So the thing is, you have to imagine the power that Donald or Joe Biden has. They get their pen, and they have the writing capacity of $7 trillion. That's an unfathomable amount of money. Of that, $5 trillion is real because we pay taxes on it. $2 trillion every year is borrowed. Okay, adding more to the national debt, and this is the thing I'm outraged about because it's just a road to perdition.
Well, speaking of things you're outraged about and everything, I just wondered if the network and you yourself, because it's going to be definitely making a lot of money, but it won't be making money for us here in the United States, at least not this time around. But will we be covering in July, because that's not that far around, the wonderful Olympics where they'll be having breakdancing? Yes, breakdancing is a sport apparently, and it will be at the Olympics. So I was wondering, will we be covering the Olympics, and how much money will they be losing or gaining in the Olympics and all along those lines? Because apparently there was some, just got a tweet from, ironically, Sasha, it was from the Canadian folks, because apparently they were congratulating folks for taking part in this weekend's Canadian diving trials. So apparently there was a lot of top divers that were competing, that were trying to decide who is going to be representing Team Canada at the upcoming Paris Olympics. So they just
also, I heard there will be a men's synchronized swimming at the Olympics. That's kind of also interesting sport.
The whole objective of the Olympics is to get more eyeballs watching the Olympics. And when I was in Salt Lake last week, they're planning to have the Winter Olympics. They have a bid on it to go back to Salt Lake, and Salt Lake has all the infrastructure.
Oh yeah.
And so that's the thing that happens. Paris has the infrastructure. They held it before. The real problem is like in Greece when they had to build the infrastructure, they didn't have the money. They had huge amounts of debt, and frankly, the Olympics sunk the whole country of Greece, because they were spending money that frankly they didn't have. But the Paris Olympics will probably be very successful because they have the money.
Haven't a couple of countries lost some money? I know that even here in North Carolina, we didn't have the Olympics, but we had like some Olympic games, and I think that there are still some facilities that are here, and some of them that are used, some of them that are not used, because sometimes you build this stuff and you are hoping that it comes back. I think that's the case with LA and some of the things that were taken and built for the LA Olympics and even the Atlanta Olympics, because there was some Olympics way back when in Atlanta. But apparently this year there's going to be 329 events in 32 sports. And like I said, breakdancing is one of the newest sports. So
I see the problem. We can't cover it because we can cover it to a certain extent. We have to be careful because of copyright. They sell the video rights on that, so we have to be very careful. We can cover it from afar, but we can't really film it and do all the other stuff. Or we get another ban like we did on YouTube. You can work around the ban on YouTube by going through another YouTube source, not Pod TV YouTube, because we're in YouTube jail. And this is the other thing that irks me about us supporting the billionaire lucky class is why would they ever allow a merger between Google and YouTube? I mean, it's beyond the pale. And there was something my Chinese friends pointed out. They're pointing out that
bought it outright. I mean, you can't compare YouTube to Google. Google bought it outright, and nobody.
No, I know they bought it outright, Sasha. But they were that my Chinese friends on Understanding China, which is a Facebook subgroup, which we sometimes broadcast through, was showing all the concentration of wealth in the U.S. By the way, Chinese, they follow the U.S. more than we do economically. And they said, why isn't the media showing all the problems of concentration of wealth? And then they said 6 companies, media companies in the United States, own 90% of all the distribution, which is true. So what you have in our media today, I thought was the top 5, but really.
But Nick, we have a popular issue that we talk about on the network, and there's a person that is an advocate for it, but it can get going into the merger space as well, because I know that one of our hosts deals with the whole notion of cannabis and what's going on in that industry and everything. But apparently there was supposed to be a merger that was going to go taking place in the cannabis industry, but there, and Sasha will love this, unfavorable market conditions led to the cancellation of a merger between the cannabis technology provider Agrity Corp and the controlled environment ag tech firm Nature's Miracles. So that was going to be a merger that was going to take place on this past week and everything. But I guess they was thinking that even though a lot of people are getting into that business, whether it's CP or that oil, I'm saying the name wrong, and all along those lines, or whether it's some of the other cannabis projects and all along those lines. But apparently there were some unfavorable market conditions. So that merger will not be taking place, even though the deal was announced in April.
Unfavorable market conditions, like it's still illegal under federal law. That would be a pretty unfavorable market condition. But again, it's the allocation of assets, the misallocation of the assets in the United States, which is just appalling. And if you can't build housing, then what you do is take the money, use it to pay down the national debt. But throwing it away on these corporate welfare is just an abomination. It's going to go on this year because I read the 2025 budget. And not only that, it's going on further because all the government agencies, otherwise known as the deep state, are getting funded more money for doing what? Nothing.
No, but then you got people that are doing interesting things because, like I said, they said that shares of Agrify, AGFY, tumbled nearly 15% during Monday trading from a 33-cent per share at the opening to 28 cents by midday. And
are you on Sasha's show now or something?
Nature's Miracle fell more than 20% during Monday trading on the NASDAQ from 74 cents in the morning to just under 54 cents. But under the terms of the original major Constellation deal, because I actually met somebody recently that was working with, I think it's called Wolfspeed, which was Creek in the past, was they were to purchase $750,000 of LED lighting equipment. So are your fancy houses that you're gonna have the poor people have, are they gonna have LED lighting? Because apparently that's something that was really big, and that's even kind of where Cree made its money on it. Now I think they're known as Wolf Speed or something like that and everything. So I was just wondering, are we gonna have LED lighting in these fancy houses that you're gonna be giving the poor people?
Yeah, it's more efficient. I mean, the thing is, you have LED backed by solar, and so you take because Sasha's right. The two bills that come in all the time are, I got mine, water and electricity. We can get rid of the electricity bill, and you can minimize the water bill. So yeah, you can actually support people to get them back on their feet, the people that have problems, and do something good finally for the American government. I'm totally appalled that we're spending all this money on charging stations. I'm totally appalled we're spending all this money on internet for all, so somebody in Nome, Alaska can get the internet. Look, if you're in Nome, Alaska, you can't get the internet. I have two words: too bad. And the thing is, spending money on computer chip companies in the United States, that's ridiculous, because most of it, as you know, they make the chips overseas. But to give them grants in the hundreds of billions is just a big mistake. So somewhere along the line, we need to get the heads of Congress together to actually make good decisions, not bad decisions for Americans. And they continually to do it. And there are no new ideas. All their ideas are old ideas and bad ideas.
So let me
There's
hear,
a lot
let me hear,
of
let me hear, let me hear you
smart, there's
correctly.
a lot of
Hold
smart
on a second.
people
Let
out
me hear
there
you.
that in
Let me
San
hear you
Francisco are
correctly,
not
and I want to hear
in.
Sasha as well. So you're saying that even though many people, because I've even got some friends, like y'all know, I don't drive, but I've got some friends that are very excited about their cars that are like the energy efficient cars and all along those lines. Because I do have some friends that have those type of cars and everything. So are we saying that we're going to go back to the more traditional Chryslers and Fords, and we're not going to be worried about the cars that are the ones that are being charged by electrical charging stations, the EVs,
And
and
it's,
all along those
and
lines?
it's
So we're not going to do the EVs at all. So we don't think that we
yeah.
need EVs.
Yeah, those EVs, like the electricity is free. It's just free. It just pops it. No, that doesn't. They actually put the charging station uh, in their car, in their garage, and then they use electricity that in many cases is oil based to charge their cars, and then they feel good because look at me, I have an EV. I'm helping the ecology. No, you're not. What's happening is you're basically supporting an industry that's screwing all the poor people in the United States and the rest of us by squandering their money on charging stations all over the country.
But apparently there aren't enough charging stations, because that's what the latest article says, that there aren't enough being built.
No,
Because they
no,
said in
it's
2023,
Mark.
automakers sold almost
It's not
1.2
the
million
business.
all electric cars,
It's
accounting for
not the
7%, but
business of
there's not enough charging stations.
no, sir. It's not the business of the United States of America government to put charging stations. That's the business of Tesla or whoever wants them, not our business. It is our business to support people, and it should be a right to have minimal housing in the United States. That is a government function. That is cruel and unusual punishment.
Well, speaking of
that
cruel
we
and
allow
unusual,
people
speaking of cruel and
to live
unusual
on the
punishment,
streets.
apparently your good buddy Elon Musk fired his entire 500-member supercharger team. So he actually had people that were trying to get the
He's not my good
charging
buddy.
stations, and then he fired all of them.
I got his book here. He's not my good buddy. He's a rich lowlife, they said. He's nouveau riche. You know, he didn't grow up in a wealthy family like some of us that are speaking did. He grew up in a poverty, so he still has a poverty mindset. And his poverty mindset is he needs more for himself. Look at what he's doing to his own company. He's trying to get a multi-billion-dollar payday, and he didn't like the Delaware Chancery Court, who turned him down, thinking that you're just robbing Tesla. Okay, so what you're doing is you're worshiping basically what we call nouveau riche, rich lowlife. Okay, is he smart and greedy? Yes, he's very smart and he's very greedy. Is he responsible for Tesla? No. Those were the engineers that he hired. They actually built Tesla. He just jumped in, threw money at it, and claimed to be the founder of Tesla. And all of it is just not true. He's a complete fraud. So why would anybody listen to him? Because he's got some money. Does he have class? No, he'll never have class. He just has money.
We only got 5 minutes to go and everything, but Sasha, what's your take? Do we need to have EV stations, or is Nick right that we don't need to have EV stations and we don't need to have this kind of
We don't need
investment in
government-sponsored
electric
EV
cars and
stations.
everything? So what's
I
your take?
think that these stations could be provided by private company that is specializing in that. And there are kind of a few companies around war building charging station, at least in Canada. For sure, I know one or two companies that are doing that, and government has nothing to do with these companies, really, because why would government get involved in a private business like that, especially with uncertain return? And it's unclear for how many years they have to wait that return. It's not government business, period. Now, what's interesting, I just remember that a few years ago, Canada, Toronto, actually was hosting Pan American Games. And so there are a lot of sportsmen from North, South America came to Toronto. And Toronto didn't have enough housing to host all these sportsmen. We're talking about thousands of people. So what Toronto did before this event, they built enormous number of small apartments to house these athletes. And once after the games they left, they sold it all on the open market at very cheap prices. Now apartments were very small, and I think except Chinese people, I think nobody could live in these apartments and still can't. But they were all being sold like hotcakes, and they're talking about downtown prime area. So it's almost like a new city over there.
Well,
So
speaking of prime area, like I said, we only got a few minutes to go into this world politics. Nick, what are your thoughts since you want to give away free housing and everything in terms of privately owned commodities? Because like we talked about well, on a number of these other shows, there are private hospitals, there are private prisons, there are a number of private businesses that are out there that are now being run privately that used to be more community or definitely more publicly based and all along those lines. So what's your take? Do we need more of these? Because I said, I think, well, I don't know about the one here in Durham, but I do know that in the state of North Carolina, there are some private prisons and there are definitely some private housing and everything. So do we need more of these private entities that are supplying
No,
these necessities of society?
no, you don't need private prisons. That is, again, just bad misallocation of assets. We spend way too much money on the prison system in the United States. We incarcerate 2 million people. I mean, more than Russia, China, any other country in the world. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And to have a private prison system, which you're now funding capitalists to throw people in prison, and we're a prison nutty society. There's nothing good about our prison system. It needs to be reformed, really. And we also need, and part of it is that a lot of people in prison, Mark, have mental issues that would be better dealt with outside the prison system. And so the thing is, and this goes back to a lot of their mental issues, is because they're homeless. The reason they're homeless is because we're giving all our money to Elon Musk, and we're worshiping him like he's a god, and he's not a god. And then the money we don't give to Elon Musk, we give to Nvidia like they're gods. They're not gods. So what we need to do is be an iconoclast and strike these gods down and put the money where it belongs, which is back to the people. And the only way you can do it, you've got to get rid of Citizens United. You've got to get rid of them lobbying in Congress and basically ripping off the American public.
But Nick, on that same basis and everything, we also got a lot of people that are, and I'm not knocking the concept of a tithe and everything, but you got some people that are giving away more than they can afford to their church leaders and all along those lines. And definitely, if you, I think the percentage is like 5 to 10%. If that's what you want to give there for your faith walk and everything, that's perfectly fine. But I do know some people that are literally giving away practically their house and homes in order to have their prosperity ministers up there, and that's in a number of denominations and everything. So I don't know your take on that, because a lot of people are giving away more than they can afford.
Well, just like anything, some religions are good and they help people, and some of them aren't. There's a guy named Joel Osteen who has a religion it's a religion of helping himself. And
Exactly.
okay, and this, he's just a bloody crook. And the thing is, but then there's a lot of them I've been involved in them. I'm telling you, they actually help society. They're unbelievable. They do more than I would do. And so the real problem is how do you get rid of the trash, the Joel Osteens, and replace it with some of the good ones that are out there. And that's going to be, that is actually a problem. That's the reason I believe in what Dave Walker says. You need a problem solvers caucus in Congress that actually looks at problems like that and works to solve problems like that. But instead, it's still festering. So Joel Osteen builds himself his 30,000 square foot house and takes tax-free income into his from his congregation. And who knows how many people he's ripping off. don't know. But he runs his own TV stations. He's a very successful businessman. In terms of helping people, I don't think so. Definitely sainthood is not going to be in his. It's not part of his. What do you call it? His lexicon. I mean, his target.
Definitely not, but we're going to get on out of here. We've got a show that deals with education and definitely deals with a private school and all along those lines. So the show that Mama Knowing does about St. Cia Academy is coming our way right now, but I know I'll see Tasha tomorrow because he'll be talking about investment, and I kind of gave an allusion to some of that conversation on today, but we'll be talking about that on Wednesday. And of course, we've got Russia, Ukraine, and China coming on Friday. So we've got a number of times, including World Edition, that we'll be seeing Sasha and myself on as well. But right now, let's get on out of here. And of course, we'll have Wall Politics again on Thursday as well. So definitely a great conversation. And Sasha, as you get ready to head out the door, if you want to tell folks
Thank you.
what you got going on and everything tomorrow, definitely just let us know what you'll be talking about, and we'll get ready to get on out of here.
Okay, I'll let you know tomorrow. Bye bye,
Now,
everybody.
bye. Sounds good.